And thank you, Mr. Chairman and Madam Congresswoman.
Thank you.
Not only for having this hearing, but also for your concern. And we remain committed to working with you because I think we share a very commonality in what we want to achieve. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Ambassador. I'd like to now invite to the witness table, first begin with David Himbara, who is coordinator for Canada at Democracy in Rwanda Now. As a former close aide to President Paul Kagame, Mr. Himbara held a leading role focused on socioeconomic development in Rwanda. Tasked with improving national competitiveness, he spearheaded efforts that ultimately improved Rwanda's ranking in the World Bank's annual Doing Business report. He's the author of his latest book is Kagame's Killing Fields. Next, we'll hear from Robert Higero, who was coordinator for the United States at Democracy in Rwanda Now. Prior to moving to the United States, he served as a major in the Rwandan Defense Force. He was part of the force that took control of Kigali in 1994, that toppled the then Hutu government and helped bring an end to the genocide in that country, in Rwanda. After his decommission, he was tasked by the Rwanda government with assassinating officials and dissidents that fell out of favor with the Kagame regime instead of following those orders. Major Higero went to the press and unveiled the plot at great risk to himself. It led to his being insecure in Belgium and the need for him to move to the United States for his own personal security. We'll then hear from Mr. Mike Jobbins, who serves as the Africa Programs Manager for Search for Common Ground. He previously worked in Search for Common Ground field programs in the DRC and Burundi, where he supported the startup and management projects on SGBV prevention, refugee reintegration, security sector reform, and post-war governance. Mr. Jobbins has led field missions in humanitarian and emergency settings in North Katanga, North Kivu, Ecuador provinces of the DRC. He also testified previously before this subcommittee. And then we'll hear from Adote Akwe, who serves in the Government Relations Office for Amnesty International. Mr. Adote is a political analyst and experienced advocate and campaigner, U.S. foreign and security policy advisor, as well as an advocate for rights-based approach to ending poverty with field experience in Africa as well as in Asia. He is also a regular spokesman for Amnesty International USA for print, radio, and television in the United States, Europe, and Africa. And he, too, is welcome back to our committee. Mr. David Himbara, if you would begin.
Chairman Smith, Ranking Member Canbas, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much indeed for giving me the opportunity to talk about democracy and human rights in Rwanda. I want to talk about three things. First, I want to give the context of the recent elections. Then number two, I want to talk about the elections themselves. And then number three, I wish to talk about post-elections. The context of the elections in Rwanda was the constitutional amendment made in 2015. The constitutional amendment did two things. One, it removed, basically it removed a very, very important part of the previous constitution, which said that, I quote, under no circumstances should President of Rwanda serve more than 2 7-year terms. Why was this in the original constitution? It was in the original constitution because historically, since independence, each leader in Rwanda has come through violence and then was removed by violence. And each of those presidents, and the main ones have been 3, in their terms, each one managed to win elections by 98%. So this is not a Kagame issue. It's all of them. And of course, as I said, they became power unto themselves. And none of them, we have not had any peaceful transfer of power in Rwanda. So that was the importance of that clause, that under no circumstances. So this is what was removed by the amendment. So now President Kagame can stay in power until 2034. Now, there was something even worse than that. There is something even worse than that in the amendment. In the new constitution, they inserted what we call Article 114, and it's called exemption from prosecution for a former head of state. The article reads, a former president of the republic cannot be prosecuted for treason or serious and deliberate violation of the Constitution when no legal proceedings in respect of that offense were brought against him while in office. But of course, it cannot be brought against him while he's in office, because he has immunity. So Kagame has immunized himself even after he leaves power. This article basically gives him license to commit any crimes without any consequences. How do we explain this? Oh, by the way, incidentally, I must say with a bit of sick humor, these constitutions are being made by amendments, are being made by the women majority parliament. These are women majority parliament at work. So the numbers of women is great, but the quality of work they do is rubber stamping the worst possible. Okay, so why is he doing this? We already know that even to come here in the United States, Kagame had to be given immunity. The Obama administration asserted immunity for him because there are already cases against, in this case, about the alleged role in shooting down the previous president. This is the background behind this. But we also know that currently in the International Court of Justice, there is a court from Congo, that accuses Kagame the crime of killing 3.5 million people. Rwanda and Uganda were both taken to this court. Uganda pleaded its case and lost, and is paying reparations, but Rwanda denied jurisdiction over the court. So, but this case won't disappear. It's sitting there in there somewhere. So that is the context. That is the context. Then the elections themselves. I don't have to say much because a lot was covered. 99% out of 96 voter turnout. This begins now to take us closer to the situation of North Korea. But incidentally, this clause that frees Kagame from any prosecution, I have looked at the worst dictators, the worst dictatorship. I have not found any such protection. Now, the elections themselves. I want to quote the British ambassador. The British ambassador was among the observers of the elections. So I quote him. He says that along with other international observers, I personally saw irregularities with the counting of ballots and voter tabulation. And then he concludes, we are concerned by the arrests, and it is concerning to see the targeting of opposition figures. This is the British ambassador in Rwanda. So I really don't have much to say, but now let me talk about post-elections. Post-election is now revenge. It's a period of revenge. It's a revenge big time. And revenge has singled out in particular Diane Shima-Rwigara. Why her? Why her? There are a number of reasons why her. First of all, she is the one who dared to raise issues of democracy, issues of human rights, issues of moral corruption. And by moral corruption, she was saying that even in this economic miracle people talk about, the ruling party itself has accumulated so much wealth. Its conglomerate, Crystal Venture, is now worth 500 million. While the same government punishes and destroys other businesses. Rwigara's own father was killed 2 years ago in a mysterious accident. When the family protested, the government moved on and demolished their hotel. A month ago, another hotel of a competitor to the ruling party, Tower Hotel, demolished in broad daylight. Just 2 days ago, the business of the leading Rwandan businessman, Tribert Rujugiro Ayabatwa, his $20 million Union Trade Center, seized and auctioned for $8 million. So I guess I'm running out of time. I see some signals there. So in conclusion, yeah. So what we have here is very costly experiment. Even those people who talk about the good things, the women in parliament. By the way, those women no one is voted. That parliament is a list compiled by the ruling party. The senators, half of them appointed. Don't confuse the senators in Rwanda with senators in the United States or Congress people. No. These are lists, party lists. Those who are not elected by the president, they're elected by people he has appointed in other institutions. So business success, absolutely not. Yes, if we talk about president traveling in a $60 million plane, rented from his own business at the taxpayer's cost, if that is success, I don't think so. So what should the United States be doing? I think the United States, in my view, has overcompensated. During the Clinton years, during genocide, the government stood by while terrible crimes were committed. Then comes Kagame. So now we have gone overboard. He can't do no wrong. I think that it's time that we take a closer look, support Rwanda. We are not asking by any means to say stop health support or stop education. No. But the military, the same military that we are supporting, is the same military that is killing its own people. So what is good with the military that is doing great in Darfur when it's mauling down people in Rwanda and Congo? There is a problem there. So I would simply say this. First of all, I conclude by thanking you very much for having this hearing. But also let me thank the Congress, because I believe that in the budget law of 2017, there is a clause in there that says that for any government in the Great Lakes region to receive military support, the State Department must verify if this government, if any government is causing havoc. They're not using those words. Is causing havoc in the neighborhood. So I think you ought to hold your State Department accountable to see if they're doing this, because we know for sure that causing havoc in Burundi or in Congo has not stopped.
Doesn't have all of his people in place yet, but we need to say clearly and unmistakably to the new White House, don't repeat the bipartisan error of the past, because we'll get the same outcome. We'll get more impunity. Whoever would like to go first? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, very often we talk about a smoking gun. I think Article 114 is a smoking gun. Article 14, as you said, it's an impunity. I looked in preparation for this hearing. I looked I read as many constitutions as I could find anywhere, including even the Constitution of the Democratic Republic of North Korea. I could not find a constitution that gives a green light to a head of state not only to commit crimes while in office, but also after he has left office. So I would assume that he's probably thinking that after he leaves office, he will probably put in a puppet that would refuse to enforce international laws. They then say, look, you can't touch him here, he's here. Because as I said, there are cases here already in the US. And in the US, this is a country where even a sitting president can face law. I'm not going there. So it can face law. So really, if the United States or even United Kingdom, this is a country that Rwanda is a member of the Commonwealth. How does the Commonwealth allow a country that gives a green light to criminality on the part of a head of state and get away with it? So here, I would say that we should begin right there. We campaign for the removal of this, because it's either you want to be president and lead and build the economy and do these wonderful things, empower women, that is great. But if you make a mistake, you cannot be above the law.
Kagami's got the same view. This has nothing whatsoever to do with anything but compassion and empathy and concern for the people of Rwanda, that they deserve better. So my question is, we've talked about the human rights situation, the attacks on journalists, the attacks on individual people, the attacks that Mr. Higaro and the threats that he faced. My question is, Do we know if Paul Kagame has amassed a fortune anywhere? That we often find even Yasser Arafat, who is supposedly fighting tooth and nail on behalf of the Palestinian people. Upon his death, we learned that he had amassed a fortune that would have been well utilized for the people of under the PLA at the time, or PLO, I should say, at the time, under their control. And yet he was a rich man, and we find that all over the world. So do you have any information, or could you, if necessary, get back to the committee about Kagame's personal fortune? Does he have one? Yes.
When the Panama Papers came out, I think it was last year, something extraordinary happened. He is the only president in Africa that I know of that featured his assistants. And I say it was extraordinary because elsewhere there was uproar about Panama Papers. But because of the situation in Uganda, no single paper would even dare discuss the Panama Papers. It took nothing. Now,
for the record, what was contained within the Panama Papers?
Oh, what was the concern is that they have offshore accounts that operate aircrafts, private aircrafts. So now, we know that in Crystal Venture is, Kagame and RPF don't deny that Crystal Venture exists. Crystal Venture has more employees than even the central government. This is open. Crystal Venture thrives on cronyism, basically contracts from government. Any opposition, any competition to Crystal Venture, destroyed. So what is going on there is that even these clean records of corruption, see, what they report about is is petty corruption. But when we talk about institutionalized corruption, then we're talking about something else. The Crystal Venture is in the open. Crystal Venture has 2 aircraft. This is known, 60 million apiece. And what do these 2 aircrafts do? They shuttle the president. So the president basically rents his aircrafts from, so there is Kagame the president renting aircraft from Kagame, the chairman of Crystal Venture. So what's extraordinary is that all this is in the open. Now, the problem is that no media in Rwanda would dare talk about this. But foreign media is doing this. I refer to The Economist. 2 months ago, I think the title is, but I'll send it, I refer to the committee. The case of Crystal Venture, the case of, transfer of public resources from government into Crystal Venture, even these loans he spoke about of 4 million that have built the convention center. Government went into debt for that money, but suddenly the owners of these hotels is who? Crystal Venture.